Hello everyone, Matt from Model Minutes here and welcome back to the workbench for another unboxing. Today it's a vintage unboxing and I'm going to be looking at the KP Avia B.35 in 1/72 scale. So join me as I explore this vintage kit. So starting off on the outside, we can see we've got an elastic band, just keeping the box together because it is a top opening box. And we've got this rather vintage looking image of the Avia B.35 as it's either taking off or landing at its airfield. I'm led to believe that the Avia B.35, this represents a prototype aircraft. So onto the short edge, we have a price sticker of £1.99, but take that with a pinch of salt because that's probably a price sticker from many years ago. That's not the price I paid for it. On this long edge here, we've got an image of the prototype version that's included in the kit, and it's the same on the other side. So it's the same image twice, showing the paint scheme in color. So you can use that when you come to your painting to try and get it in the right places. This short edge, I'm not entirely sure what this says, but I feel like it's telling me what colours I need to paint the model. So I've got a brown, well, a yellowy brown, a yellow, and a green. But obviously we'll have a look inside and see what it says. Flipping over onto the back, you can see I've got a £4 price tag there. That is what I paid for the model, obviously it being second hand. And not too expensive, but we'll discuss that price a little bit later. So opening the box then, and we've got lots of different things in here. So let's take a look at the instructions first. So it seems that we've got them in a number of different languages. So it says here on the box that this was made in Czechoslovakia, so I know it's now not Czechoslovakia, they are two different countries. So this gives an indication of how old this model is. And I think here there's even some different kits that are in the PM model range at the time. Sorry, not PM, KP model range that was there at the time. So this one is in one language which I'm not familiar with. And then this one is in English. So we've got information on the front page about the prototype of the aircraft, the Avia B.35. So if you want to pause that and have a good read, feel free. And then down here we've got some information about the sort of statistics regarding the aircraft. So let's open it up a little bit. It's got a very old-fashioned feel to the paper. You know when paper goes a little bit old and you can sort of feel a residue on it. It feels a little bit like that. So a little bit different to modern instructions. We've got information up here telling us to read before we begin, so that's good. However, we do have a sprue map, which is really nice to see. All of the parts are numbered on the sprue map on here. However, I don't think that they're numbered actually on the sprues themselves. So it's worth paying attention to the sprue map before I start building this one. Then we move on to the actual construction, and it's pretty much all just done in one step. Join the fuselage, put the things inside. We've got a choice of propellers. There is a wooden one or a metal one. We have a display stand. No pilot that I can see in here. And it says here I'm allowed to paint the instrument panel if I want to. However, I can use a transfer that is included. That's good. And there's loads of different bits of information about the build here. So again, pause and have a read if you'd like. And then flipping over, we have our painting and decal placement instructions. And yeah, not a fan of this style in the sense that it's black and white and I have to try and figure out what is what based on the different hatchings over here. We can see that on the whole we've got quite a few different choices of paint that we need to use. White, green, blue, grey, brown, another green, silver, black, bit of brass, and it does have research notes down the bottom as well on which parts may be different colours. So I know that if I'm using the wooden propeller, apparently it had, where does it say that? The wooden propellers were left in light wood colour, tips were covered by fabric sprayed by dark green, the The spinners had presumably a blue and red stripe. However, for the metal one, the metal propeller was original silver of duralumin. Can't say that. And the back of it was black, but the spinner was blue, supposedly. That's what they reckon. So yeah, I can't see a date. However, it does have information here that the detailed information was published in a certain magazine in 1975. So yeah, vintage instructions, not too bad. Should be relatively easy to follow as long as you pay attention to them as you're going through. Not seeing transfers yet, so we'll have a little rummage and see if they're inside one of these bits of paper. Wasn't in that one, wasn't in that one. Is it in this one? This one's in, is that in English as well? So I've got two in English. Ah, there we go. No, that's the same one. So there's the transfers. This one looks like it's in German, that one. So yeah, we've got a good selection there. They covered off quite a lot of languages. Transfers then. So that way up. And they haven't yellowed, which is good. However, you can see that the printing isn't particularly fine. The registry on the red, on the roundels, is leaking into the blue. They're not terrible. The white is a bit difficult to see on the camera. Try and get it in the light there. You can see that they're there. The decal film doesn't look too thick. I do wonder, however, how well they would apply being quite old. I mean, I probably could give them a go. Might be worth scanning them into computer first, just to make sure I've got a copy. Decal for the instrument panel, very simplified. And then the insignia type thing that's here. But again, that printing is very simple and not particularly accurate. But yeah, could use these, I imagine. We have information on the back, probably about how to use them, but again, I can't read that. So moving on then to the plastic parts. So here are my plastic parts, still in the box. We've got the wings, and then two little sprues and a clear sprue. So we'll just get them all out. Now, interestingly, as it's pretty obvious, my parts are all moulded in this blue plastic, which not ideal to work with because it will probably require a primer to cover it up. But it would seem that when I was doing some research about this kit, they were moulded in a grey, a light grey. So I'm not entirely sure when the blue plastic originates from, but we'll talk about the age of the kit a little bit later. So you can see that one of my propellers has fallen off of this sprue. There is a bit of flash on the plastic, but that being said, there are recessed panel lines on there and raised rivet details on the model. So the detail on this is actually surprisingly good given its age. Misalignment here between the two halves of the mould, so the control column, or at least I think that's the control column, it's slightly out of register, so to speak. It's moulded one side and then a bit out of step on the other. There is a bit of flash. The centre of the wheel there is completely filled in, which will need clearing out. Yeah, so mould quality is moderate. Details are surprising. Bit of flash that will need tidying up. Ejector pin marks there, which if you're worried about, can clean them up as well. No cockpit detail on the inside there. The plastic feels pretty dense and not greasy, which is quite nice. So let's look at the other sprue then. Oh, hang on. So my props, I presume this one in my hand is the wooden one, and then this one here is the metal one. So let's put them back in the box to keep them safe. The other sprue then, same sort of deal. Details are pretty good. Quite a lot of flash that will need tidying up there. And also on here, the details are quite nice. Recessed panel lines and raised rivet detail as well, which is pretty good. It's pretty impressive given the age of the model. So the final bits then, we have upper wing surfaces. And you can see that the tip of the wing there is very sort of softly moulded on, and it's wanting to fold off, so I'm best make sure I don't lose that. I'll have to make sure I glue it on properly. Again, we've got some recessed lines here for the ailerons, but the panel lines on here are raised. You see them in the light, but the details are pretty good. We've got this bit here, which I presume is like a bit of a radiator. Flipping over, you can see we've got some pretty intense ejector pin marks and also some locator holes for the other parts. Pitot tube on there, not particularly fine, but I'm sure it'll do the job. And then the lower wing half comes in one part. There's our locator pin marks on there, and then also the same sort of deal on the other side. But yeah, the moulding isn't too bad, just a little bit of flash to clean up. Clear parts then. We have included a display stand which comes in two parts. That's quite nice. Definitely going to be using that. Bit of a shame though, seeing as the aircraft doesn't come with a pilot, but I'm sure I can find one in the spares box. The other thing to note as well is that I don't recall, there's no mark on the bottom of the wing here for where the display stand is supposed to go. These are for the wheels. Yeah, so to put the display stand on, I'm going to have to cut a little hole in the bottom big enough to fit that on there. So I'll have to figure that out. Pilots and a hole to put the display stand on. But not too much of a big deal. And that was pretty much it for that. The rest of the clear part here, we've got our canopy. Canopy doesn't look so good. It's a bit scratched, it's a bit untidy. The plastic isn't particularly clear. The moulded lines are relatively easy to follow, but yeah, the plastic part here isn't particularly good. So even if I do put a pilot or some extra cockpit details in there, for example, you're not going to be able to see them particularly well. And that is now it. So we had some clear parts which include a display stand, which is a good inclusion, but a questionable cockpit. We've got a couple of blue sprues and a few bits that are loose in the box, which are moulded to a surprisingly good quality. I wasn't expecting this when I picked up the kit for my £4, I think it was. We have a number of instructions in different languages, which seem to be relatively straightforward to follow. However, the painting instructions in there are not my favourite. And then we have the transfers, which I imagine would be usable. I'd probably put some micro scale liquid decal film on there just to make sure that they actually are usable. But as for yellowing, there isn't any. So that's not too bad. All of which comes contained within this rather small box. And this is a good sized box. It fit neatly on your shelf with no issues. So like I said, paid £4 for this. Not too bad of a price. It was more of a sort of whim when I saw it at the model show, and I thought, yep, I might as well just pick that up to do a vintage build. And having done a bit of a search online, it would seem that between £4 and £5 is the kind of going rate for this kit of this vintage. So yeah, not a big deal there. And given that here we have a £1.99 price from back when I presume it was more or less being sold, it might even be a second-hand price again there. This might be third, fourth, fifth hand, who knows. But yeah, with inflation, that's probably, it hasn't changed much in value there. But then again, a vintage kit, what sort of value does it hold? For me, the value is in building it and helping it fulfill its destiny of being built. However, for some people, they like to hoard these old kits and keep them for posterity. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the history of this kit then. So to the best of my knowledge, KP introduced this model in 1974, which is consistent with the date regarding that magazine that was inside of it. And like I said earlier, all of the information I can find indicates that the original release perhaps had a light grey plastic. I've got blue, so a later edition, but I imagine that in the time it was in production, they rotated through different colours. So mine probably doesn't date from 1974, it may be a little bit more recent. However, it's probably, or I'm going to say definitely, before the 90s. So if it was in manufacture for about 10-15 years and they changed the plastic out, mine's from in that period somewhere. Because after in the 1990s, the KP and Mastercraft had a rebox, and then it was reboxed a couple of times in the 2000s in different boxes. So this particular box leads me to believe it's a 1974, between 1974 and the 90s. But yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised with the quality of the moulding on this one. Regards the detail, plastic flash, not so good. Transfer is possibly usable, but yeah, I would be interested in doing this one. Maybe in a back to basics kind of build, hand painting it, doing it in traditional methods. What do you think of that? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated, and subscribing with notifications on will miss you never mean a modelling upload. As always, quick shout out to my patrons and channel members for the extra support they give the channel. Massive thanks to these guys on screen, and if you'd like to join them, take a look at the links in the description. There are also other ways you can help support the channel if you would like to do so. Again, all links are in the description. For now though, I think the last thing to say is a massive thank you to you for watching this one, and I'll see you on the workbench again next time.